Ladies and gentlemen, it is official. The man to the bottom left of me has finally been traded. Kevin Durant is headed to the Houston Rockets in exchange for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the 10th overall pick, and 5 future second-round picks that'll go into the year 2032. I'm excited. I'm happy that this is all finally done and resolved. It was extremely exhausting to get the 8 to 11 reports a day about Kevin Durant and his suitors. They're not willing to give up this. The Suns are demanding this. It was a whole lot of talk with little action. And as much as I love the trade season, as much as I love player movement, I'm not really here for the talking. Let's get things done. One of the things I will say, this is big for the rest of the NBA because, those big dominoes have to fall for the rest of the movement to happen. We now have Desmond Bane and the Magic. The Rockets just made a deal. So now we'll start to see the rest of the league apply pressure. We obviously have the last NBA Finals game today before we officially head into the offseason. So I'm excited for that as well. Now, as far as the trade, I love it for the Houston Rockets. I think the Houston Rockets win this trade. When you consider how much talent, the asset pool that they have, and what they ended up giving up in exchange for this caliber of a player, I think is really, really good. I mean, you gave up Jalen Green, who was extremely polarizing in the the playoffs. And throughout the years with the Houston Rockets about how valuable he truly is, what his ceiling is, and what he can ultimately give you at that next level of basketball. And these playoffs wasn't a good representation for him. He is still young, and you did pay him, and that had been a big conversation because you have some guys next in line to get paid as well. So to be able to give him to the Phoenix Suns along with Dillon Brooks, I think both of those guys and what they brought to the team last year is replaceable. And I think Kevin Durant is going to replace the offensive production that Jalen Green gave you. I think you'll still be able to get the defensive value of Dillon Brooks through Amin Thompson and Tari Eason and whoever else you decide to add during the offseason. So you still have the core basis of what the team was. It's just that the offense is elevated through Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is going to give you a lot more efficient, better offense than Jalen Green, and he's going to be a lot more productive in the playoffs. And I think the defense that you lost with Dillon Brooks, again, is going to be replaceable. The 10th overall pick, it means more to Phoenix than it does to you if you're Houston. Houston just had the 3rd pick in last year's draft, and he barely played in Reed Shepherd. So the value of that young player at 10 doesn't hold as much weight to the Houston Rockets. And I think that is where the Suns kind of get some value in this trade. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Jalen Green. There's still this thought that he could potentially be flipped to another team, but I am under the belief that if that was going to happen, the 3rd team would have been a part of this trade. So I'm kind of viewing this as Jalen Green is going to spend some time in Phoenix, and him and Devin Booker are going to play together. We're going to see what that experiment looks like. You also get Dillon Brooks, which I don't think is like a bad get. He's going to give you some type of perimeter defense and allow this team to be respectable. They're going to go through a retooling phase. They got a first-time head coach, a head coach that specializes in player development, which I think is good. And I love that you're getting a first-round pick for him, a lottery pick at that, where he can have of his own and start his development program. So, again, I think this allows the Suns to stay respected and respectable on any given night basis. But, again, they're going to take a huge step back because even with Kevin Durant, this team wasn't that good. But you want to make sure that there's some type of bottom line for Devin Booker where he isn't on a team that's getting embarrassed night in and night out like he was in the first few years of his career. So I love that for Phoenix. Interested to see what they're going to do at number 10. They are in a spot where obviously they have to wait for a few of those other dominoes in the draft to kind of fall before them to see what their options are at 10. But you talk about names like Carter Bryant, the Colin Murray Boyles, Derek Queen. Do they want a guard? Is Yakachunas, Jaeger Demon, or do they take a reach? Noah Singate. Like, I am very interested to recalibrate my brain and think what direction the Suns can potentially go into and would want to go into. So that's a nice gift for them. On the flip side, again, for the Rockets, the ability to be able to retain the other young talent that really complements this team, I think, goes so long. There was a report, speaking of the 9 to 10 report today, but there was a report that the Suns really wanted Jabari Smith Jr. in this trade. Like, they were almost trying to say, if they ain't getting Jabari, they're not doing a trade. And it was good to see them try to play some hardball, but ultimately we see they weren't able to make that happen. And again, it just shows Raphael Stone is doing such an amazing job. I don't think he's getting enough credit for everything he's been doing with the team. I mean, even paying Fred the money he paid Fred when they had it. And now they're going to be able to, bring Fred back in. And Fred is going to reconstruct this contract to a more team-friendly deal. And you have a team that's positioned to do better than what they did this past year. And they were the second seed in the Western Conference. You're looking at a potential lineup of Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari, and Sengun. And off your bench, you still have Tari Eason, Steven Adams. I think Reed Shepherd gets a little bit more opportunity this year. You still have Cam Whitmore. Even Cam Whitmore didn't get traded. So talk about prioritizing the core and the youthfulness. And it just keeps so many different doors open. I'm not here to say that they're going to keep every single one of those young guys at the core, but if there's another move in this offseason, or if there's another move at the deadline, you really figure out that this is a piece we really need, or a special type of player type, you can go get them because you still have an abundance of assets. So I love that part for Phoenix. I love that part for For Houston, they're going to have a bunch of other moves that they can pivot and make depending on how this team looks. And I think you give them up until the All-Star break to really fine tune it and see, hey, we need a sharpshooter, or they maybe feel that way during the offseason. You know what I mean? They maybe feel like they need that perimeter knockdown shooter. So we'll see the direction they go there. It is a little bit disappointing for Phoenix. I do feel like Jabari Smith would have been a very underrated piece for them to get. But ultimately, with Kevin Durant's age at 37, with the entire world, not just the league, the entire world understanding the position that you're in, having to trade him, you don't have as much leverage. And that's why I say ultimately Houston wins. But I don't look at it as the Phoenix Suns got ultimately fleeced, and this is just such a lopsided trade. If you're Phoenix, you value that 10th overall pick a lot more than the Houston Rockets. And, Jalen Green, he is such an interesting player because I feel like the basketball world, especially online, they've kind of made him out to be this punching bag because his lows are very low and his highs are highs that I understand it's tough to buy into, to say that he's going to be able to do that on a night in and night basis on a team that is trying to compete and win. But there is something there, right? We can't dismiss that there's something there. And this is a great situation for him to be in to really display that. And I think playing next to a Devin Booker will be able to grow his game, right? Because I do think that that's the next phase of his career. Jalen Green has had an opportunity with the Rockets, though he was young, to carve out this identity for himself of being like a number one option, or a guy that you build around or build with as that top premier guy. Didn't really go as sexy with Houston. I think it went a lot better than people give him credit for. Again, this was a second seed out west. And again, he had moments throughout the season. He's shown growth. He's still extremely young. He came in the league as a teenager. So he's still probably 23 years old right now. And so I think this next phase for him is going to be good to play next to a Devin Booker, because I think that's the role for him in the NBA. I think he's going to have to be a really good number 2 or number 3, and he's going to have to figure out how to fine-tune his game to play with other dominant scorers. You know what I'm saying? He's going to have to play off of people. And it's not always going to be the luxury of having a center like Sengun that you play off of. Everybody don't have the luxury to play with a Nikola Jokic or a Sengun who, happens to be a center. The other identity is to either play with a dominating scoring guard or wing. And so I think there's some things he'll be able to learn from Devin Booker. I think the expectations are back lowered like they were in Houston, where he'll be able to make a lot of mistakes and grow. And then, again, Dillon Brooks, 3-and-D guy. He's going to fight. He's going to compete. And it allows you to have some type of respect level. Phoenix is not as far as away as I think it gets talked about. I think people forget just how good Devin Booker is. And so what I love for them is that they did get somebody like a Dillon Brooks, because I think he'll complement Devin Booker in the type of pedigree D Book plays with. I think also just the defensive mindset that lack there out there in Phoenix. And so you have that now. He complements him on the offensive side of just being this floor space and 3-and-D guy. And now it's going to be extremely interesting to see what they do with that 10th pick. That 10th pick can make or break how short-term this retooling phase is going to be. It really is that simple. You strike on this, you get a solid player. It doesn't have to be the face of the franchise. You already have that with Devin Booker, but you need a really good, productive player here at 10 who fits around Devin Booker and can complement him. And before you know it, the Phoenix Suns are going to be, a team that's a move or two away, and the Bradley Beal contract is off the books in the next couple years, and you start to position yourself maybe to get some of those picks to stockpile back up when you talk about 2030, 2031, 2032, and things will start to look a little bit more brighter out there in Phoenix. But ultimately, I do give this one to the Houston Rockets. I think this team is going to have a chance to be just as good as it was last year. I know a lot of people that were saying Fred had to be in this trade. You just pick up his option and throw him in a trade. But like I said before, if you're trying to make a trade for Kevin Durant to win and compete, I think you have to keep Fred VanVleet on this team. And I'm glad that was ultimately the decision that the Houston Rockets went for. And again, I can't say it enough. We have to start talking highly about Raphael Stone. We have to. He has done a magnificent job managing these assets. He found a way to not overpay in this Kevin Durant situation. You were able to keep the draft capital that the Suns so desperately wanted back. You were able to keep the real young talent that everybody in the NBA is in love with, like the Jabaris, the Taris. Obviously, you kept Amen and Reed Shepherd, but you even were able to keep the Cam Whitmores. And again, I think that positions you down the line or in the short-term future to make another move. It really just depends on what they look at this roster and say we lack. For me, I think you're missing a knockdown shooter. It would be nice if this team could somehow, some way go get a guy that's like a legitimate, pure, sharp shooter. Maybe you can get that in free agency. Maybe a guy like Luke Kennard will come to Houston on a small, a little short-term betting yourself type deal, and you get it through that avenue. But I think you have the size with Adams and Sengun. You still have Jock Landale. I think you have the wings with KD, Tari, Jabari, and Amen. I think you have the guard play with Fred VanVleet. I love the way that they've been able to develop Reed Shepherd. He's almost having the career of like a rookie quarterback where you kind of set and watch from the sideline. You learn from the veteran quarterback, which is Fred. And now this upcoming sophomore season for Reed Shepherd, he'll get a little bit more responsibility on his plate, not too much. And then by year 3 and 4, Reed Shepherd should be in position to be ready to take the reins of being the starting guard for this Houston Rockets team, which won't be a job that I think will have too much responsibility because you're looking at a team that should have Sengun, Amen Thompson, Jabari. It'll be a lot of things there for Reed Shepherd to just grow into this role. And on the backside, the other part of it that I really love for Houston is that, like, as good as Jabari is, as good as Tari is, as good as I think Cam Whitmore can be, as good as I think Reed Shepherd can be, none of them have played at a level where you're going to have to, like, weirdly pay them. I think the Jalen Green hurdle was that Jalen Green showed enough to where you had to pay him. You had to pay him $30+ million. I don't think Jabari is getting $30 million. I don't think Tari Eason is getting $30 million. When it's time for Reed Shepherd to get paid, I don't think he's getting $30 million. So you're in a great position if you're Phoenix to really tie these guys up on long-term deals that are going to, I don't want to necessarily say team-friendly, but it won't gut you. And we know how important that second apron has been. So, again, Raphael Stone, if you ain't hearing it enough, Pee Wee the Plug is here to give you your flowers. Super excited to see what this team is going to look like at the start of the season. And I'm hoping that Phoenix drafts the right person at 10. This is the place to be. All NBA news during the offseason. I'm Pee Wee the Plug. I appreciate y'all. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.